Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where we talk about spirituality, general spiritual topics, and just all around building up knowledge that we have about ATRs, Eurocentric spirituality, Eastern spirituality, and more. So today we're going to talk about how I literally manifested three of my biggest goals for the year in 2024. Towards the end of 2023, I was kind of really focused on three things. I needed a car because it was being very hard to run my business without one. And my fiance has a car, but he literally always, obviously, he needs it. It's hard to maneuver down here in South Florida without one. We also wanted to move because the house we're living in, we're renting, and there was a lot of issues. Honestly, the people we're renting from were not interested in fixing many of them. And we also wanted to downsize a bit because things were getting very expensive down here. And honestly, we didn't need a whole house just for the two of us. We could have gotten something smaller. And the last thing was, of course, going into a physical space for my business. If you don't know anything, you should know that I used to work right out of my backyard. There was a whole shed. It was really cute. Love my she shed. My fiance had built it for me. But as things were growing, I couldn't really keep working out of the shed. And if we're moving, then the extra space where, fulfillment, stock for my website, all that stuff was taking up space in the house and it wouldn't fit into wherever we were moving. And so for most of 2023, I was kind of anxious because I wasn't sure where we would end up and how things would happen. And all of these things kind of had to happen within the last month to 2 months of 2023. And so honestly, I spent way too much time being anxious about it. It wasn't until I really sat and I was just like, okay, Carla, we need to calm down a bit and we need to get into actually finding a solution. That was probably the first step, getting into the right mindset with everything, because as anxious as I wanted to be, if I stayed in that place of anxiety, it really didn't leave any room for me to be effective and productive and look for and get to the kind of place where I needed. So that honestly, it's not even a spiritual tip. That's just a logical one. You need to get into the right mindset before you do anything. Afterwards came the spiritual stuff, which was me not just walking in faith, but honestly, sending a whole prayer to my spirit guides, to the ancestors, to God, to nature, whoever who would listen, and to really focus that my intent over finding three things that would be right for me. And so my gifts, they also came in three parts. Now, I didn't do any kind of specific spiritual work or spell or anything. I honestly already have my practice, and primarily when I need something, I don't do spiritual work to go and find it. I regularly practice, I regularly honor my spirit guides and my ancestors. All I really do is speak out the intention, perhaps light a candle, or to focus my intention or make petitions to, make those intentions known, but I don't do specific work. And so once I was finished with that part, came the path towards success. So first was actually the car. The car was really weighing on me because I needed to maneuver so much down here and I just could not get around, with my fiance driving me places and everything. It was such a hassle. When clients needed things to get done, it was hard. Uber gets expensive eventually. And honestly, the time that it took was killing me. Obviously, I couldn't just go and get any car because used cars were so overpriced. The money that I would be losing on a used car sucked. And then but new cars were also coming pretty expensive. If you have to buy a new car, that is a lot of, if you know what it's like, it's a lot of money. I'm on the younger end of things, and I do live in South Florida, one of the most accident prone places in the country. So that would mean that I could end up adding hundreds of dollars on top of my bill. And that was a little much because it felt like I would be downsizing, saving money just to go spend it elsewhere. And that was something that also added a level of apprehension. The day that I went to the car, I was actually interested in getting the Chevy Trax. It's this new car by, Chevy. This is like the first year it would have been coming out. And I'd heard it was right around my budget. I liked the MPG. It looked like it could be something that I could like. And I went to the dealer with my fiance, and I was ready to test drive this car. I had done a lot of research on the car that I wanted. And I mean, I wasn't in love with the tracks, but it fit the boxes that I needed it to fit. And at this point, you know, the car that I want is luxury electric. And the budget that I have is the Chevy Trax. And so I was just like, okay, this is where we're going to be for now. And so I went to the dealer to buy it, but I didn't like the way that it drove. And then once they added everything else, the price of the car ended up being a lot worse. And the interest rates, whole other story, ended up making the car a lot more expensive than I originally wanted. And so I was just like, okay, let me look at some of the used cars. The guy brought me to some of the used cars, and I just I could not justify spending what they wanted me to spend on a used car. I was like, this is freaking ridiculous. And I wasn't at the point where I had enough money to just pay cash because I was spending a lot of money elsewhere, which we will get into. And so I think we're about to walk out, and then one of the guys at the dealership, the salespeople, they're like, hold on a second. What do you think of the Chevy Malibu? And I was like, I don't think anything. It's fine. It wasn't a car that I was like in love with or anything, but I saw the price that Malibus were going for down here. It wasn't something that I was it was definitely over budget for me. And so he was just like, but wait, there's more. So he takes us to the back, and it turns out they had, I think, 3 or 4 Malibus on the lot that they were kind of using as rental cars for people when they came in for service. And because of that, technically they were new, as in they had never been owned by anyone else, but they knew that it was used. I mean, if you put like a mile on the freaking car, it's used pretty much. And these cars all had anywhere from like 8 to 12,000 miles on them each at a different number. And so he said, we're selling these cars as new, but we know the mileage situation on them, and so we can't sell them at a new price. And honestly, that was probably one of the best things that happened to me. I wasn't even planning to go to that dealership specifically. I was planning to go to something else, and my fiance said, hey, why don't we just try this one real quick? And so we went there, and they had these cars. And because my Malibu has had like, I think, just under 9,000 miles on it, when I bought it, I ended up getting, I think, like $7,000 or $8,000 off MSRP. So it was, and we were in there doing research on Kelley Blue Book before we signed the papers. I was looking at other dealerships, what they had 23 Malibus listed for while we were there before I made any decisions. And based on what I'd been seeing, this was honestly a relatively reasonable price for a used Malibu in the condition that it was, with the mileage that it had. And so I ended up getting basically it was basically a used car. Let's be honest, that thing was not brand new, just because nobody had ever had it title before. But I had it at, honestly, what was close to what it would have been sold for if it had been used, plus all the extra add-ons and everything that it would have had if I bought it new. So it was actually a really good kind of point in the middle for me, and the price that I was willing to pay and the price that I could pay. And so I was very happy about that. The second thing that, the second part that was able to be manifested was my retail space. Now, I had been really struggling to find decently priced retail space in South Florida. This is now one of the most expensive places to live. And it was killing me the way that people were not going to let me have any kind of decent space with any kind of square footage for anything less than like $2,000. And that does not even include, water. It doesn't include electric. Of course, there's internet every month. There is a lot of overhead when it comes to having any kind of physical space. But I knew that I needed something that I could work with clients, because it just, like, I'm not going to take them to my apartment once I downsize with my fiance. I can't take them anywhere else. And this ain't really a mobile service. I do have an online presence, but it would have been very hard for me to make the kind of money that I wanted to make just doing this online. And so since I had gotten the car and it was definitely going to open roads for me to be able to do a lot of other stuff while being mobile. Having the place would kind of clinch it. I was not, again, I was not even intending to rent this space. I had not even thought to look in this direction. I was losing hope. Everything was bad. It was to the point where I was just like, okay, maybe I could just start with office space and then grow out of that and eventually get into a sort of retail space or something down the line, because the numbers were just not making sense for where I am in my, where I am in the business right now. And so I was like, late at night, I was just like, man, I think I'm just going to have to pull the trigger on one of these 500 square foot little offices, 300 square foot offices, and pay a few $100s a month and just have that be what I am going to do. And while I'm searching Facebook, literally Facebook Marketplace, I was just like, offices for rent. And I saw this little place for a few $100s. And I, set an appointment with the girl for the next day. I go and I see it. I hate it. Let's be honest. I hated that place and I didn't want to get it. But my bank account needed me to do things my heart wasn't prepared to do. And so I was just going to do them. And so the next day I had the appointment with her. I went to see this little, office space. It was pretty good size, honestly. I probably could have grown there, hands down, 100%. I could have grown there if I had been there. Only God had other plans for me, because when I left the office space, the literal building right next to it had a sign saying leasing space. We have all sorts of sizes or whatever. Call us. And so I was like, okay, since this space is honestly a little on the smaller end and I could afford to spend a little bit more, I was hoping that because the two buildings were right next to each other, the price would be comparable in what I would have paid at that office space. And so I call them again, make my appointment. The very next day I come back, and I kid you not, they had the perfect space for me. It wasn't right on the street the way I probably would have preferred if it was fully retail, but it was over 1,000 square feet. So we had plenty of space. It was in a very centrally located area in my neighborhood. In my city, I should say, since I don't live here, since moving. And it was a very, very good price, which was another thing. So now I have two back offices. I have a main area for retail, and we're still kind of building things up right now, but I have a space where I can do workshops, where I can provide spiritual services. I have another office right next door where I can hold stock of everything. I can have my sort of administrative office and an entire front room to build out the retail aspect of things so that I can have more local presence. And then the third one, the trifecta. Honestly, this was absolutely perfect. I found this place again while looking at a whole other place. I am not kidding around. I was very interested in renting. I went on Zillow or whatever, and I saw something for rent. It was a 2-2, over 1,000 square feet. So it was very spacious. It was in a great neighborhood, peaceful condominium. It had a beautiful lake in the back. And right when I stepped foot in here, I hadn't even seen the place yet. I was just driving through the neighborhood, and I told myself, this is the place I'm going to live. This right here, this complex, it was not too far from my family, not too far from the new retail space. It was, again, really well located. It was very easy to find everything that I wanted in this area of the city. And most of all, it was at a price that I liked. And my fiance and I were willing to pay. And so I go there to see the place. And this landlord, he wanted everything. He wanted everything in the sky. He wanted everything everywhere. And unfortunately, because I had just taken out what was approximately a $27,000 loan because I had just gotten a car, my credit score did take a dip, which it'll go back up. But if you know anything, it will not do that for, I think, a month or two. So I was not meeting the requirements that I needed to qualify. This man wanted everything in the world, honestly. He wanted everything at all. He wanted us to sign a 6-month lease. He wanted to pay 4 months up front. And then based on how we did on the 6 months, just because my credit score was a little on the lower end of things, He also wanted to test us out before he would give us a full year's rent lease term. That was crazy. That was crazy. I would have been foolish, no matter how much I liked that complex, to take that spot. And so, but that wasn't gonna stop the universe. No, no, no. They said, that's okay, baby. You don't gotta worry about this. This man right here, he wasn't for you anyways, okay? Because next thing I know, while also looking on Zillow a couple weeks later or whatever, I found this other place in the same complex for rent. It is cheaper. They didn't care about our credit because our income was high enough that they were just like, whatever, it's fine. And you guys obviously make money. If just because you're not in the high sevens doesn't, well, in the sevens I should say, it doesn't mean that we can't rent to you. They didn't have a problem with me bringing my dog. They didn't have a problem with anything at all. The approval was quick as can be, and within a few weeks, everything was pretty much settled. And I am currently living in the apartment that I essentially manifested for myself. I I can tend to be overly anxious about things. It's the human in me. I'll be real with you. A lot of life is hard right now, especially considering I live in South Florida. So things are very expensive down here, and they became that way over the course of like 2 years. So a lot of the income people are making have not caught up to the price of things. I was lucky enough that I started my business before that, and my fiance has a really good job, and so we're pretty secure. Any other place in the country, honestly, we'd be living good. We'd be eating right, okay? But we live in South Florida, and so we're just eating, which is a blessing in and of itself. But that can come with a lot of frustration. And if you're in the moment where you're trying to manifest some change in your life, and you're trying to get to the next step, and you're trying to figure out like where are things going next for me, honestly, sometimes after you get into that right mind space, after you start doing the work, you need to find a way to settle into the idea and the knowledge that you can do this, that you can manifest the things that you want, that everything that you need in life and the things that are meant for you are already on the way. Was a wonderful example, honestly, because these were the three things that I needed most in my life to get right. A lot of things were kind of in upheaval because of the place I lived, not having a car, and not having a place to grow my business. And now 2024, all things are kind of wrapped up. And just to put a bow on it all, as if the divine timing could be any more divine than it already was, the door for my commercial space is 203A. My apartment number is 203, and I am driving a 2023 Malibu. Now, let me tell you something. I sit down sometimes and I almost want to laugh at the way that everything aligned the way that it needed to for me. And I felt incredibly blessed to know that the things that were supposed to happen happened all because I was ready and willing to open myself up for what the universe had for me. I was ready to manifest the life that I wanted to live. And I put in the work to earn my place in my commercial space, in my new apartment, as well as in my new car. Maybe I'll do a video kind of giving you guys a tour when things are a little bit more set up. But if you want to catch up on how things are going, Instagram is probably the best way. I've already done a little video of me painting the place. I'll give you guys updates as I kind of get into my commercial space. You will not get any updates for my home because people are crazy. And just know that I'm happy living there. And as for the car, it's a Chevy Malibu, guys. It's white. You'll be fine. Look it up. Here's a picture. All right. So thank you so much for joining. Please feel free to like and subscribe as we talk more about spirituality, as I vlog, as we get a little bit more into learning about different kinds of spiritual practices over time together. Thanks.